Hi, Judy Graybill, relationship coach, healing hearts one relationship at a time. And I am back with another video to talk about relationship issues. And today I wanted to talk about one of the most common misconceptions within relationships that I see within people. And it is the concept of arguing. It's the concept that arguing is bad or wrong, and the arguing itself makes a relationship unhealthy, I mean. Well, yeah, of course, if you're arguing, you are unhappy, but I meant unhealthy, because I'm all about teaching and advocating healthy relationships. And one of the things that sometimes couples tell me is that they never argue at all. And, or they relay to me in some way, shape, or form that there's something wrong in the relationship because there's some arguing. So certainly the quantity or quality of arguments would make a difference on whether it's healthy or unhealthy. If you're arguing a lot, then yeah, it's likely you have an unhealthy relationship. It's also likely that a possibility anyway, is that you just need to learn how to have more productive conversations and really just to work on your communication. So it really depends. So there's multiple places to go with this. One is the petty arguments, for example. So petty arguments, if you're having a lot of petty arguments, then there's probably something deeper going on in your relationship. Some of the things that I see is like there's a lack of intimacy, like there's a lack of feeling understood in general. And so, like, because the petty arguments are not really about those little nagging things that you're actually arguing about. Because at the end of the day, most people don't really care about those things. I mean, they do because they're annoying, but the argument is happening because they're already upset. If you were in a happy mood and you had like peace within you, you were just genuinely happy in your core, you're probably not going to be getting happy, or you're probably not going to be like going off about extra dishes in the sink that needs to be rinsed off, or the toilet roll being, under versus over, or something stupid like that. So I don't know what the petty arguments look like for you. I'm just saying that typically petty arguments, especially if there's a lot of them, are usually something deeper going on within the relationship that needs to be explored. And it's typically a relationship issue. Like I said, lack of trust, lack of intimacy, lack of being understood. There's some need that is not being met. And it could be related to the dynamic. Maybe you're not understanding your partner as well as he or she would like. Or it could be just that your partner is dealing something within himself or herself that is specific to their own journey, their own life. It could be something that happened in their life before you guys came into union, before you guys became a partner. It could be something from childhood. It could be something from a past relationship. I mean, so that's also a possibility. So when arguments happen, even though it always seems like it's happening between two people, like if I was arguing with my partner, yes, that is related to him and I am affected. it doesn't mean 100% of the time that both people are at fault. It also doesn't mean that only one person is at fault. A lot of times people are quick to determine that it's the other person's fault without doing personal self-inventory. And I would say that if you do not definitively know exactly why you are arguing, then that's a sign. I mean, you definitely that's definitely something that you want to figure out. Whether you do that by talking to your partner and on a day that you're not upset, that's one avenue. Or you can, maybe find some self-help books, learn love languages, Gary Chapman, the 5 love languages. You can also ask me, or another coach. I mean, because sometimes if you share like the kinds of things that you argue about, and especially if you record how often you argue over a period of a week or a period of a month, how often do you argue, and the kinds of things that you argue about, that's a lot of information that you can then share with a coach or somebody that you trust. It could be a friend that the only thing with friends is I would choose a friend who actually really is the introspective type of friend, and somebody who is a little bit on the objective side and just doesn't always side with you 100% of the time. You want somebody who is going to actually be able to see your situation, the bigger picture of your situation, and to be honest with you. A coach or a good friend to use is somebody who is going to tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. Because, well, that's its own conversation in and of itself. The thing is, it's about not what's going to make you happy today by saying that the partner is a jerk. That might validate your friend today, or your friend might be validating you today with that kind of a statement. But how does that help you in the bigger picture of what your relationship issues are? It's not going to help you not have that relationship argument again. So, and that's the other thing. If you're not, if somebody is quick to apologize, and the apology happens, it comes and goes. It doesn't matter if it's in the same day or within a couple days. If the apology comes and goes, and there's no discussion around the reason for the argument, that's a sign that something's being swept under the rug. And I would say the same thing with relationships that you know of that you think are healthy, and they never, because they never ever argue. If a couple never ever argues, it is one of two things, in my opinion. And I'm open to a third suggestion if you can think of one. But basically, the way I see it right now, it's one of two things. One is it really is healthy relationship, but when the situations come up, they just know how to talk about them productively, because both people in that relationship are practice like mindfulness and have a lot of self-awareness, to the point that they know when they're getting upset. They're in touch with their feelings. They're in touch with what their subconscious thoughts are. And if both people are in that space, then definitely you can get to a place where you're never really arguing. It doesn't mean you never get angry. It doesn't mean you never get mad or sad or any of, or even jealous. I mean, jealousy is another one. I mean, it doesn't mean that none of those emotions happen. It means that when those emotions happen, each person is realizing that that happened within themselves, or they worked out a system with their partner where they just understand what their partner is going through, and they have that kind of communication. So that might be one scenario for a healthy relationship for a couple who says they never argue. It's because to them it's probably not really an argument. It is more or less, oh yeah, she lost her cool, he lost his cool, I did, or somebody lost their cool, but then we talked about it and everything was okay. And if all that happens in a matter of, a half hour or a couple hours, then those people probably are not thinking of it as an argument. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is the reason why there's no arguments, and this is far more common. I see this a lot, is particularly with people who are codependent, but not necessarily. But somebody is sweeping their own issues under the rug, or they're sweeping their partner's issues under the rug, or both people are doing it equally. In other words, you're not asking for what you need in your relationship. Like you have a basic need within you that is not being met, and you're not asking for what you need from your partner, or you're not meeting your needs in other ways, because we don't always have to get all of our needs met through our partner. We just need to get our needs met in general. Depending on what it is, there are some things that maybe some needs that we can get from our friends or our other circles that therefore we don't have to, we're not going to be taken out on our partner, because if it's a need and it's being satisfied, regardless of who's satisfying it, then the relationship that you have with your partner is still going to stay healthy and intact, and you guys are still stay together. It's not going to cause arguments. So maybe you're not asking for what you need, or in some other way you're not getting your needs met. So that's one issue. Or it is there's something that your partner is doing that hurts you in some way. You either feel hurt by it, or it nags at you. I'm not talking about something that just grates on your nerves. I'm talking about, like, maybe, for example, a pet name. That's one that comes up for whatever reason. Sometimes a pet name that you've always accepted in the past, and maybe you've been going through some personal changes, and you're changing your viewpoints or beliefs on things, and now you don't like that pet name anymore. Now it just doesn't match who you are now. And so now you're getting upset because, like, I did a video not too long ago on gender issues. So, like, for example, a pet name that would be related to the gender issues would be Babe. So, like, I remember early on, I was okay with my partner calling me Babe, it like made me feel special. But then as I became more of a feminist, I was like, no, Babe, that's kind of demeaning. That's, and especially now with all the Me Too stuff, that's like bringing up a lot of other issues and making a lot of women realize that, they've always been in relationships where something was going on that they didn't like. And now there's a lot of people that are standing, and men too, actually. I do see this with men, because it's a really interesting phenomenon. You actually see men also realizing that they've been undermined. So, because the Me Too movement is really about women supposedly being undermined and undervalued, and yet there's a lot of men that are also realizing that, actually that's happened to me too. Like, in all my relationships, I've always been overpowered, and because a lot of men were taught to be chivalrous. a lot of men were taught to actually defer to the woman because to be respectful to the women. And in those scenarios where it's like the ultra, and I mean like the ultra gentlemanly type, those men are going to go out of their way to make sure their woman is, you know, protected and taken care of and their needs are met. But what happens is they don't recognize when they accidentally get into relationships in which they are being undervalued by the woman because the woman was not brought up in the same household. So, and I only bring this up to like just balance out the scales about the gender issues. This is not really a gender issue video. It's just, it was really about the pet name. I'll get back to that. Okay, so the realization that all of a sudden a pet name is now doesn't match with who I am anymore. It doesn't match with my beliefs anymore. So, but now because it's tied to a bigger issue about being undervalued, now it's causing issues. And unless you have a conversation, so that is a need that's not being met. That is an issue with it that is affecting the relationship dynamic with your partner. And now you're not saying anything. So, I mean, it's just something that has changed in you, that has shifted, that used to be okay in your relationship, but for some reason it's now no longer okay because now you've changed as a person. And, you know, we're human. We're supposed to change. We do change. I mean, that's part of, there's just part of the growing process. It's part of the natural growth of living on this planet. I mean, or, you know, living life. So that's the other issue that might be happening is like, or maybe either your partner's doing something and you're brushing it under the rug, or there's just, maybe you've fallen out of love with your partner and you're afraid to tell them, or there's something else that is just hurtful that they do, you know, like, you know, it's, I want to say infidelity, if you suspect your partner has cheated, but you don't know, or if your partner has suspected you of cheating, but they don't have proof, so they're actually not going to tell you, then that suspicion eats away at them in their mind. And instead of saying something about it or just come right out and asking you, they brushed it under the rug. Or maybe something was said behind somebody's back, you know, like maybe you're talking with your friends and your friend says, oh, well, you know what, so-and-so was telling me, or your partner told so-and-so blah, blah, blah about you. So this happens too. And then instead of talking to your partner about it, you just stew about it and get mad. And sometimes those other people, unfortunately, they're just causing problems. Yeah, this actually does happen. Like if other people are jealous of your relationship, then they might try to break you and your partner up by spreading rumors. So if you've heard a rumor about your partner, or if you've heard something that supposedly your partner said about you as a rumor, instead of stewing about it, you need to talk to your partner about it and just outright ask them, yes, will it be unpleasant? Sure. You don't want to, I mean, it's one of those scenarios where it feels like it's a lose-lose situation, so you don't want to address it. But it's not really lose-lose, because you're losing by staying in this relationship that's going to eat away at you, because the suspicion that they did that is eating away at you. And it's possible that it's not even true, whatever it is that you heard about your partner. So, and if it's not true, then you can find that out when you ask your partner and find out. So then, of course, that brings up the issue on whether it is true and your partner's lying to you, because everybody denies it. So, and maybe you're not confident on whether you can figure out whether your partner is telling you the truth or not. That's its own issue, and that's a separate video. But the point is, what happens in relationships that about the arguing or the non-arguing. So it comes down to pushing things under the rug. That's the second kind of scenario I see that is far more common than the first one, about couples who supposedly are not arguing or never argue. It's quite likely that something's being pushed under the rug and not being addressed. And if it's a healthy relationship, it's probably not those big issues that I mentioned, like the rumors, but those things do happen as well. So I just want to leave that with you, because I think that was a lot, and I don't want to, I don't want this video to be too long. It's really just about asking for what you need, addressing whatever the issue is within your relationship, addressing that within yourself, and addressing that with your partner. So it really requires like the self-inventory, the self-awareness of, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And, you know, is it directly related to what my partner said or did, or is it something else within me? Either way, it would be beneficial for your relationship if you communicated that. So if it's something that you're arguing, like if you're arguing with your partner a lot, and you do self-inventory and you realize that, you know, you're going through some personal things based off of previous relationships, then even though you realize that it's within you and not your partner, having a conversation with your partner about that could really help the relationship out, because your partner is probably confused as to why you guys are arguing, and your partner probably doesn't know if he or she is doing something wrong or not. And also, if your partner is doing something wrong that is bothering you, you owe it to both you and your partner to say something to your partner about it. Because if your partner really cares about you and cares about the relationship, your partner is going to want to change that thing. And change is not easy. And just because they want to change this thing, because you might have already had that conversation about changing that thing, and maybe your partner hasn't changed it yet, but that's its own conversation, because change is difficult. And for that situation, I want to say you may just have to be more patient with your partner. Or maybe you both need to talk to somebody together, and that is something that I can help you with if you want help. That's something I can help you with as far as like, how do you navigate that change? Some people will never make changes, and I have a formula for that: await to change, AWAIT, awareness, willingness, action plan, implementation, tracking. So in order for somebody to make that change, they have to have that deep awareness of what the problem and the solution is, the internal problem solution within themselves on what it requires to make the change, and the external solution as far as externally what I need to do differently. So a lot actually goes into actually making the change. So if you're asking your partner to make a change and they haven't, and you're getting upset at them about that, then again, that needs to be looked at deeper. So that is its own issue. And one of these days, I'm going to do a whole video on just that formula. And I'm going to break down the steps. But when it comes to arguing, what you really, really want to know is that arguing in itself is normal. And there's nothing wrong with arguing. And arguing in itself does not make a relationship unhealthy. It is how you recover from those arguments that actually makes the difference. And a quote by Alison Armstrong comes to mind. She says, cough it up, blow it up, clean it up. So, and this is also a relationship expert who I think her website is understandmen.com, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've listened to her or followed her stuff, but it's the same it's the same thing that I'm talking about with regard to the arguing. It's not that the argument itself is unhealthy, it's how you clean it up afterwards. Cough it up. That means whatever it is, you have to address it. Cough it up, blow it up. That means, yeah, sometimes you have to expect your partner to actually react in a manner you didn't want them to react to. I mean, you're probably telling them something that is a blow to them. Like they're really surprised to hear it. So you have to be a little bit flexible and almost be prepared to see or hear a negative reaction, whether it's anger or rage, jealousy, feeling betrayed, hurt, or whatever. So that's the blow it up part. And depending on how they handle arguments, depending on how they communicate, they might be yelling back at you, so that blows up. But then the cleaning it up part, the third thing that Allison says, is really about the discussion afterwards. And that includes the self-inventory. So, yeah, I guess I'll just leave you with that because that's a good way to leave it, I think. And feel free to like the video. If you like what I had to say, feel free to comment. And if you like this content and you'd like to hear more content from me, I would love for you to subscribe and we can connect more. All right, for now, that's it. Have a good evening and I will see you next time.